My parents are taking away my boyfriend privileges because he's 19 and I'm 16, but I've known him forever and they were completely fine with me talking to another guy who is 18, so what gives with this guy? Let me break it down. I've, 16F, started dating this guy, 19M, super nice, treats me right, has stable income, but does it even matter at this age? I know I'm young and dumb, but he has genuine intentions and isn't out to prey on me. We went to school together when I was a freshman, and he was a senior. He is now graduated, and I'm a junior. My mom is threatening to take my car away, phone, laptop, and friends away if I don't stop seeing him because he's an adult man. But the thing is, I'm always micromanaged by my mother. I outright told her that I can either be open and honest with her or sneak around. She said neither. I want you to stop talking to him. Her reason is that the age gap is so extreme. He's so old. But she had no problem with the most recent boy I've talked to, who was 18. How do I get her to allow me to see him more? She still thinks we're talking and not dating, even though we are. Side note, age of consent in my state is 16. I've read the law multiple times to make sure it was 100% legal, which it is. Relevant comment. He is out to prey on you, he's an adult, he knows that as an older guy he has influence over you and that the relationship is inherently unhealthy for you. If he was a decent guy he'd not be dating you. Age of consent is about how old you have to be to consent to do the deed. It doesn't magically make it okay or healthy for adults to date minors. Stop acting like a child, recognize your mom is doing this to protect you. Update. 3 years later. For the first 17 years of my life, I lived with my parents. We lived in Alaska and I've always loved it here. I feel a deep connected to nature, wildlife, and the mountains. A little over 2 years ago, I was 17, my parents had the great idea to leave everything I've ever known and move to North Carolina, where I was technically born, but I've lived in Alaska since I was 2. My mother's reasoning for wanting to leave was silly, because I'm miserable here I can't deal with the cold and other excuses. My parents wanting to leave Alaska was no problem to me, the issue was they were going to force 17-year-old me to go with them. Because I was still technically a minor they could make me do whatever they wanted. They were doing this to torture me, of course, because my parents hated the person they raised. Some parents have kids because they want babies, not because they want to raise children to become individuals. This was true for most of my childhood. I grew up in a nice home in the hills, had nice clothes, always had lots of food in the home. My parents both worked for the government, so we weren't rich, but definitely well off. The material things they provided me with didn't replace how they treated me. I was always walking on eggshells around my parents. They would scream at me over small things, hit me, and gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. Of course, them abusing me made me act worse, which made the abuse worse. They claimed that they screamed and hit me because I wouldn't listen any other way, but they never tried any other tactics to make me listen. I only knew punishment. Some of the punishments were doing wall sits for 10 minutes, being spanked with a special paddle my dad made, and one time I was hit so hard I got a bloody nose. They said I was being dramatic and forced myself to have a bloody nose to make them look bad. I was never allowed to do anything ever. Hang out with friends outside of school? No. Hang out with friends on summer vacation? No. The answer was always no. I was never allowed to leave the house. I maybe hung out with friends a handful of times growing up. My childhood is mostly a blur, and I don't remember much until I was 16. I think it's my brain's way of protecting me from all the nastiness my parents would yell at me. I have some memories of before I was 16, but few of them are happy. In April of 2020, the tension between me and my parents grew to a climax because I had a boyfriend. We started dating in 2019, and for some reason my parents were being more lenient with a curfew. I had to be home by midnight. They had motion sensing cameras. If I was a minute late, they would take my car, that I bought with my own money, away from me. They still took my boyfriend privileges away from me whenever they pleased. I don't remember exactly how the fight happened, but my parents were angry about something I did, I think at school. They both told me how much they secretly hated me, how they were never proud of me, and then they asked the most beautiful question ever. I remember the joy I felt when they asked me, "Do you want us to emancipate you?" Yes. Of course I answered that, and then they took it back and said they would never do that because I was our responsibility and they were still going to force me to go to North Carolina with them. Long story short, at 17 years old, I moved out. I got a tiny apartment by myself, on $11 per hour. My parents left Alaska, and moved to North Carolina. They now regret their decision and want to move back to Alaska, but in this economy they can't afford to. I'm very happy they regretted their choice. I think it's karma for trying to force me to go. Multiple of my mother's co-workers and friends had to beg her to let me stay in Alaska for her to change her mind. I threatened to off myself if they made me move, and my therapist also told my mom to not move me. Now I am 19, Almost 20 years old, 20 in August. I have a great job in the outdoor industry, and a beautiful apartment downtown on the river where I live with the same boyfriend. I'm doing all the things I was never allowed to do, and got yelled at for even asking to try, like rock climbing. I am doing my first multi-pitch trad climb next month. Downhill skiing. I taught myself how to ski. And I'm actually really good at it. I can do jumps in one trick. Have friends. I can leave my house whenever I want. Not clean. I clean my house whenever I want. I live with my boyfriend and he doesn't hit me to motivate me to clean. Have a boyfriend. No one is constantly criticizing my boyfriend to me. I get to live with him. I love him so much. We started dating when I was 16, and if it wasn't for him I wouldn't have had the courage to move out so soon. He knows my situation and is patient with me trying to learn how to navigate my trauma and emotions. I've been safe for 2 years, but I still feel like I'm on eggshells. My body still hasn't adjusted to being safe and on my own. I'm still always in flight or fight mode. Yesterday, while hanging up a new picture, it dropped and the glass in the frame shattered. I was expected to be screamed at, hair pulled, slapped around. My body was ready for it, but then my boyfriend calmly got the broom and helped me pick up the broken glass. The picture is hanging on the wall. We both decided the frame looks better without the glass. I made it. I live in Alaska. I climb, mountaineer, ski, hike, and bike all year. I'm happy and safe. I try new things all the time. This week I started to learn how to skateboard. Being an adult learner is kinda embarrassing at times, but extremely rewarding. Learning how to ski was the hardest thing I've ever done, and now I ski mountaineer and have been on top of many mountains in the Alaska Range and Chugach Range. This winter I'm going to Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve, where I'm going to take a plane to Mount Wrangell to do some amazing backcountry skiing. I hope my boyfriend asks me to marry him. 20 and 23 is very young, but I would be okay with it. I'm safe. I'm sad my childhood was robbed from me, but I'm making the most out of adulthood even if it's 85% working.